So pleasant day to each and everyone, especially to you, ma'am. I am Sumaya El Gamaluddin, one of the reporter from Group 2. So my topic is all about the conjugation and principal parts of verb. So first, let me read the learning outcomes. So at the end of the lesson, the students will be able to first, describe what is conjugation and principal parts. Second, learn how to conjugate a verb. And third, learn what is for principal parts of verb. So I know some of you are not familiar with the conjugation because I myself is not also familiar with the conjugation. So in this video presentation, I am going to explain it, or I'll go direct to the point in order for us to at least understand the conjugation. So first, let us define the conjugation and what is conjugation. So conjugation is a change that takes place in a verb to express tense, mood, person, and so on. So meaning to say, conjugation is a means of how we change the verb or how we make a different forms of verbs. Okay, so the question is, or the problem is, how to conjugate a verb, or how do we conjugate the verb? So to conjugate the 6 tenses in their basic forms, we only need 3 principal parts, because basically in this report we have 4 principal parts of verb, but later on malalaman nyo what are those 4 principal parts of verbs. But to conjugate a word or to conjugate a verb, we only need 3 principal parts, and those are the present, past, and the past participle. So like for example, the conjugation of the basic forms of buy in the present, if we use it as a first person in singular and in plural, it should be like I buy, we buy. And second person, you buy, you buy. And in third person, he or she or it buys, and in the plural, they buy. So as you can see that in the present, the basic form of buy is still on the original state or original form of it. So we do not change, or it doesn't change the original form of the buy when it comes to present. Okay, so next is the conjugation of the basic forms of buy. If we use it in the past and as a first speaker or a first person, it should be like I bought for the singular, and plural, we bought. And the second person, you bought for the singular, and plural, you bought. And the third person, he or she or it bought, and for the plural, they bought. And the last one, so if we conjugate the basic form of buy into future tense, and we use it as a first person, for singular, it will be I will buy, and for plural, we will buy. And for the second person, you will buy for singular, and plural, you will buy. And for the third person, it should be like he or she or it will buy, and for the plural, they will buy. Okay, so now let's proceed to the principal parts of verb. So first, let me read the definition. So in English, there are 4 principal parts, or also called forms of a verb. So these parts are used to form tenses, which tell us when an action occurred. So the 4 principal parts of verb are the present, present participle, past, and the past participle. So here's an example. So observe the sample sentences in the table below. So the 4 principal parts of the irregular verb walk, the present is still walk, or in the original state or form of the basic or irregular verb walk. And present participle for walking, past, walked, and past participle, still walked. Okay, so here's another example. So the 4 principal parts of the regular verb wait, for the present, still wait, present participle, waiting, past, waited, past participle, waited. So I think that's the end of my report. So if you have any additional regarding to this topic, please share it with us, because I myself can't quite understand my topic. So please bear with me, and thank you once again for listening, and have a great day.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. and a pleasant day to each and everyone. By the way, I am Serena Bahadawanday from BS at English 1B. And for this day, I'm going to discuss about the stem and the inflected forms of verbs. The word inflection originated from the Latin inflectere, which means to bend. This denotes a process of word formation in which objects, letters are added to the base form of a word to show grammatical meanings. Inflections can be used to indicate the part of speech of a word. They take a variety of forms, which often uses prefixes or suffixes, just from noun to verb or vice versa, such as listener. Listener is a noun, right? And if we're going to transform it to a verb, it's going to be listen. Then the suffix er transform the verb listen to noun listener, because we added the er at the last part of the word listen. Another example of inflections words, we have the find. Find, if we're going to add the s at the last part, it's going to be finds. So the s there is the inflection that we added to the stem. This time we're going to talk about the stem. A stem is what remains of a word when any inflections are removed from it. Okay, if we're going to remove that s, then we have the stem, which is the find only. So that is what the stem is. Now this means that inflections, which could be prefixes or suffixes, are added to the stem of a word. The word cooked, for example, is made up of the stem cook and the inflection ed. So the ed there is the inflection, while the cook is the stem. So this time we're going to check the inflection rules of verbs. So we have the graph here that shows for it. So we have the grammatical category, inflection, and the examples for each one of it. So grammatical category of verbs is used to express the distinctions of times. First, we have the progressive. Progressive means that the action is doing right now. It's an ongoing action. So the inflection for it is ing. So the stem here in the example is sing. So if we're going to add the ing, it's going to be singing. Now for the perfect in grammatical category, we have the inflection en and ed. So the examples is fall and roll. So if we're going to add the en at the end of the word fall, it's going to be fallen. For the roll, it's going to be rolled because we add the ed. Now for the past, that means the action already happened or already done. Then the inflection that we have here is also ed. So the noun hand can be turned into verb by adding ed at the last of it, which became handed. Now for the present and grammatical category, that means the action is happening and probably not changing, unlike in progressive that may change or are temporary. We have the inflection s. So for example, the word remove, if we're going to add the s at the last of it, it's going to be removes. So for the note is that remember that there are verbs that do not follow the rules above, such as irregular verbs. Irregular verbs are verbs that do not follow the normal pattern of this inflection. The word catch, for example, here is marked as past tense by changing its vowel sound and its spelling, reducing the word cough. Some words such as must and us are never inflected at all, no matter the context in which they appear. So I hope that you learned something, and that would be all. Thank you.
Hi, good day to each and everyone. I am basically the Inting, the reporter for this moment. But before we start, let me read my learning outcomes. At the end of the discussion, students will be able to define the irregular verbs, know the definition of modal verbs, give the sum list of irregular verbs, and know the list of the modal verbs. So this is my assigned topic, irregular verbs. So let's start. So, irregular verbs are that do not conform to the usual pattern of the addition of ed or d to the past tense and past participle. So, what is irregular verbs? In contrast to regular verbs are those verbs that fall outside the standard patterns of conjunction in the language in which they occur. The idea of an irregular verbs is important in second language acquisition, where the verbs paradigm of a foreign language are learned systematically and exceptions listed and carefully noted. In irregular verbs consist of three main parts. The root form presents, the simple past, and the past participle. Regular verbs have an ed ending added to the root verb for both the simple past and past participle. Irregular verbs do not follow this pattern and instead take on an alternative patterns. Unlike most of the other parts of speech, verbs change their form. Sometimes ending are added. Learn, like learn, learned. Nadagdagan siya ng ed. And sometimes the word itself become different, like teach, magiging thought. Verbs that form the past tense by adding d or ed are called common verbs. Do not form their past tense by ending in d or ed. They are called irregular verbs. So this is the some common irregular verbs. As you can see, they are base as a or present, past or p participle. So this is the clear picture of the list of common irregular verbs.
Hey everyone, my name is Maida Kadir and my report is all about linking verb. So, linking verbs is known as copular verbs are words in the sentence that do not show actions. They help one word in a sentence name or describe the conditions of another word. So the examples of linking verb is am, is, are, was, were, can be, could be. And to simplify the functions of linking verb, the use of linking verb is to connect the subject of a sentence with the subject complement. For examples, in a sentence, he is a monster. So our subject is he and our linking verb is, and our subject complement here is a monster. And the subject he is the re-identifier of subject complement, which is a monster. So another example is he looks stunning. So our subject here is he and our linking verb is look, and the subject complement will be stunning.
Hi again, so this is my second part in my discussion, modals. So modal verbs is a type of auxiliary verb that is used to indicate modality, that is likelihood, ability, permission, possibility. Modals. What is modals? Modals verbs are used to express certain hypothetical conditions such as advisability, capability, and request. They are used alongside a main verb inflect its meaning. Modal verbs do not add s or es to the third person. Modal verbs don't need auxiliaries to form negative and questions. For example, she shouldn't stay. That's a wrong. The correct is she shouldn't stay. And another example next is why does she stay? That is wrong. The correct is why she stay? And the next is modal verbs doesn't have infinitives or ing forms. For example, planning, it's wrong. Or to might, it's also wrong. So now let's proceed. This is the type of modal verbs: can, may, might, could, should, would, will. There are other less common modal verbs used. Common modal verbs, some like should and ought, are rarely used any longer. There are also verbs that can function either as main verbs or as a modal auxiliaries depending on the context.